So we are going to basically have the name, okay? So the name of our macromolecule, its monomer, okay? So what it's made up of. What else are we going to need? Probably what it does, right? So the function. And then last but not least, let's talk about functions, or not functions, examples. Ugh, that's the word I was looking for. So some examples of each of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the thing that provides pretty much energy to everything.
Sun.
What?
Sun.
Nope, in terms of these four things.
Oh.
Like cellular energy.
Oh.
Carbohydrates. Okay, carbs. Does anybody know what carbs are made up of? So there's this fancy word, another name for like sugars or carbohydrates is polysaccharides. Okay? So many saccharides. What do you think the individual ones are called? They sure are called monosaccharides. Okay, so monosaccharides. Oh, I always forget where the H and the A go here. Yeah, it is H. Okay, so they're made up of monosaccharides. Alright? And the function of these, okay? This is pretty much, it does two different things here. The main function, okay? Big function of carbohydrates is that they are a provider, the main provider of cellular energy. Okay? And we'll talk about that when we talk about cellular respiration, where you get your energy to move, okay? That comes from the breakdown of glucose. The other thing that these do, and these aren't all the same carbohydrates, there's different types of carbohydrates, but, so you either have your energy providers, then they also have some carbohydrates that provide support structures in a cell. Okay, so the things that make the cell essentially the cytoskeleton, the thing that give it some shape. Okay? So, some examples. We already talked about one of them. Glucose. Okay? Glucose is probably the most important carbohydrate there is. Literally gives all living things energy pretty much. Okay? We have to eat glucose, right? Plants make their own glucose through photosynthesis, all right? But they make their own glucose so that way they can use the glucose. We have to go seek it out because we don't make our own, but everything uses glucose for energy, okay? Anybody think of any other ones? Little hint, anything that ends with OSE. Okay, glucose, sucrose, fructose, dextrose, maltose, all sugars, all carbohydrates. Okay, if it ends in ose, it's a carb.
Oh, you weren't just making up words those are actually things?
No, you can find those all in the back of like their own foods and things. There are different types of sugars.
I thought you were just like random.
Nope. Cellulose, the one that provides structure in a cell is called cellulose. Okay, so there's a lot of oses. All right, and then just things like starches. Okay, all of those are examples of carbohydrates. Does anybody have any questions about carbs? Okay. So the next one we'll talk about lipids. Okay? So lipids are made up they're essentially kind of your fats, okay? Lipids and fats are kind of interchangeable, but not quite. They're made up of two ends, all right? We're really going to start talking about this on probably Wednesday, because there's your phospholipid bilayer, your plasma membrane, the thing around your cells. They're made up of lipids, okay? Lipids have two parts. They have a glycerol head, okay, and a fatty acid tail. Okay, so people generally, if you're just drawing them, they draw them like this. This would be the head, this would be the tail, glycerol, fatty acid, okay? So, again, talking about lipids and fats kind of being interchangeable. If you eat a bunch of carbohydrates, and you don't immediately burn off those carbohydrates, what happens to those carbohydrates in your guys' body? They get stored as fat, okay? Until you burn that off later. So one function of these is to, here and I'll, that way you know that that's where one ends. These provide long-term energy storage. Okay? Can anybody else think of anything else that they do? Wow, I said else like 3 times in that sentence. We talked about that they go around your membrane, right? Or they create the membrane around your cell. Lipids create barriers in your body. Okay? So it's actually, they're very, very, very important. Now when you hear about people who are like 4% body fat or something like that, right? But you look at them and you don't see any fat on them, you need some fat in your, if you were 0% body fat, you'd probably die. Okay? Because what lipids do is they go around, they create barriers around your internal organs. Okay? They help with that. If you had no fat around your internal organs, it's not great for you. Okay? So they provide this long-term energy storage. They create barriers, whether it's around your cells, like the phospholipid bilayer, or whether you have just kind of some fat around your organs. It's important that you have these barriers. Okay? And the last thing that they do is they help with cell regulation or communication. I always forget this one. Oh, it's both communication and regulation. Cell communication and regulation. Okay? Any questions about that so far? Okay, so with lipids, some of these are going to be that you probably have heard of. Waxes. And I'm not talking about like candle wax, although that is as well, but stuff that you grow in your ears. Okay? Made of lipids, primarily. Okay? You can also talk about cholesterol. Okay, that's another example of a lipid. Like we talked about with the phospholipid bilayer, okay? Phospholipid basically just means it's a lipid with some phosphorus attached to it, okay? And then other ones that you guys have probably heard of, and you guys would probably associate these more with proteins than with lipids, due to the fact that we think that this is how they work, but in fact, steroids are lipids. Okay? speaking of proteins, that'll be the next one we do. Okay, so proteins. Anybody know what proteins are made up of? They're just a long chain of, it's 2 words, both of them start with an A.
Amino acids.
There we are, amino acids. Okay? And so your body needs these things, because what do proteins do? They do a lot of different things. So they help with transport in cells, regulation, communication. Okay, some other things that they do. You need proteins for growth of body. Okay? Without proteins, you're not going to build the structures in your body. So, they always talk about if you go and lift weights, you want to reintroduce some protein into your body pretty close afterwards, right? That is because when you lift, you're tearing your muscles, okay? Some micro tears in your muscles. When you reintroduce more protein than there was before, and the body's trying to repair those muscles, it will build muscle there, okay? That's how that works. So you tear your muscles, your body rebuilds the muscles. If you introduce protein to it, it'll help build the muscle back even better, okay? But pretty much anything and everything in your body uses protein. There's support, which I forgot. Okay, so while this makes the barriers, okay, and this provides the energy in your body, barriers, energy, pretty much all the work is done here, okay? So if you're thinking about like a factory or something like that, this creates like the wall for your factory. This creates the energy for your factory to run, but these are the workers for your factory, all right? These are the ones that make sure your product's getting pushed out, okay? So some examples of this. Insulin is a protein. Okay, it's a very important one. It's the one that diabetics tend to struggle with. All right. Something else that you guys might have heard of. This is what your body uses. Which is another example. These help fight diseases. Okay. So you need certain proteins to help fight diseases. Hemoglobin, so certain amounts of hemoglobin in your blood are what allow it to clot, okay? Also, I believe if you have hemoglobin kind of dictates how much iron your body can hold. So there's a lot of people who struggle with anemia. Anemia is when your body doesn't have enough iron. Okay? Has anybody ever experienced anemia? It's not great. You get very lethargic. I have the exact opposite. I have what's called hemochromatosis. My body has too much hemoglobin and I store too much iron. And so I get a lot of the same symptoms as anemia, except if I don't give blood every so often, my organs can swell up. So that's super fun. Because of the excess iron.
Basically, you're forced to donate blood.
Yeah, it sucks because I really, really hate needles.
So how do you not know that like the doctor when you're born to like inject you with that virus or whatever?
What?
It's not
That's not a virus, buddy.
What? I don't. So just backtrack a second because I'd like to. I think there's a question there, but I don't know what the question is because you brought the word virus up and we
so
haven't.
you can like have hemoglobin and give it to people, right?
Everybody has hemoglobin. It's a protein in your body that dictates whether your blood kind of clots, whether you have iron or how much iron your blood stores. Okay, hemoglobin's really, really important.
But Jack's saying like since you're forced to like donate
you're basically forced to donate blood. He was thinking like that the doctors like gave it to you when you were a baby. Is what he said.
Oh, no, it's just a random thing. Some people don't store iron well, some people store iron really well. So it's just kind of dependent upon how your body does certain things. Kind of like certain people have faster and slower metabolisms. Oh well. And so yeah, another thing that you'll see in proteins, enzymes are a type of protein. They're a thing that gets things done. And all enzymes, so I'll write enzymes. But just how up here, anything that ends with OSE, okay? Down here, enzymes all end with ASE. So like lactase, protein synthesase, God, why can't I think of some more? Anything that ends with ASE pretty much is a protein, okay? Specifically an enzyme. Okay? And then the final one. Alright? Last of the four. Then we'll take a... Actually, we'll finish up this last little... No? Sorry, we will take a break after this. Okay? Last one. These are called nucleic acids. Okay? There's two types of nucleic acids in the whole world. Only two examples I can even throw up here. Can anybody tell me what they might be? I know you guys have heard of at least one of these before.
We learned about this.
You should have learned about it in 7th grade. But anyway, so something nucleic acid, something Na.
Oh.
Like maybe 3 letters, and the last 2 are Na.
Three letters in
DNA. Okay, so DNA stands for deoxyribose.
This goes under examples.
Yep. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know that that's what these are. So the D stands for deoxyribose, nucleic acid. Okay? So your DNA is basically just a type of nucleic acid, and the sugar that's attached to it is deoxyribose. Okay? Anyone know the other one? What? I think you were close, but I think you said the right 3 letters, just not in the right order.
Yeah.
So what was that, Ryan?
What were the 3 letters?
RNA.
RNA. Okay? And that just stands for ribose, nucleic acid. And I'm sorry if with everything here, Nick, let me give you a little better. There we are. Okay. So, the monomer for this is called a nucleotide. Okay? And there are 5 different nucleotides, okay? So in both DNA and RNA, you have adenine, guanine, and cytosine, which are pretty commonly referred to as A, G, and C, okay? We'll go over this a lot more later. A, G's, and C's. In DNA, we have thymine, which is usually just referred to as T. And then in RNA, you have uracil, which is just usually U. Okay? And these ones are pretty simple. Anybody know what you use them for? Pretty much two things. What does your DNA have in it? It has your whole genetic code. It has what makes Evan different from Andrew, different from Brooke. Okay? Your DNA is you. Right? So, nucleic acids carry genetic Nope.
Please excuse this interruption. Sophomores who have picked up a National Honor Society application, this induction is for last spring's induction. That was missed, so it's for the juniors. For sophomores to be eligible for National Honor Society, they have to have one semester completed. We will hold our usual induction in the spring for this year's sophomores. So, the upcoming induction is to hold the one that was lost in the spring. Thank you.
So,
I kind of got lost in that. It's you guys at the end of this semester can go apply to be a National Honor Society.
what do you do in National Honor Society?
Stuff, things, I don't know. I was in it, but I forget what I did. I mean, it looks pretty good on like college applications, so.
I spent like 3 hours writing the application last night because I thought it was due on Tuesday.
Tragic. Alright, and the other thing that these do, so your DNA carries your genetic information, but your RNA is used to make proteins. Okay? Are there any questions about that? But anyway, so, yeah. Cell theory. Everything's made of at least one cell. So, cells themselves have one. We have a few more than one. Okay?
So, a cell has its own cell too?
Well, just cell is a cell.
Oh, I thought you
I mean,
said-
one cell, a single-celled organism,
Oh, we're not that big.
is a cell, right? A single-celled organism. So a single cell, one cell organism. So a cell is a living thing by itself, okay? But then there's a bunch of them that make Evan, okay? About 37.5 trillion of them. Okay? So anyway, we've got these things that are, they make one or more, are all living things. Cells are the basic unit of structure and organization of all living things, okay? So basically that just means
This is two.
yeah. Alright, so they're the smallest anatomical unit of all living things, okay? So when you talk about cells, if you have a bunch of cells that are together, okay? Cells make tissue, okay? Tissues then go on to make organs. Organs go on to make organ systems. You put all your organ systems together, you have an organism, okay? So when we talk about that kind of stuff, cells are as far down as we can break it down in terms of anatomical structure and organization. The smallest
like-
thing.
Is a cell like way bigger than an atom?
So a cell, so a micrometer, okay? A micrometer is just, so So 1 micrometer is 1 times 10 to the -6th meters. Okay, so pretty small. So millimeters to the -3, so imagine even about 3 times smaller than that. We have 2 different types of cells, and we'll go over those. But basically, a cell in diameter, so a cell diameter, depending on the type, one type is between 0.1 to 10 micrometers, okay? And then the other one is between 10 to 100 micrometers in diameter. Okay, we'll talk about those 2 here in a second.
So wait, the more micrometers there is, the smaller it is? Or like when it's saying like 10 to 100?
This is the smallest one. So like if you had 0.1 of an inch versus 100 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same thing, but
Okay.
we're just using
Okay.
micrometers because that's where they are. Really, 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 really small. Not smaller than an atom, no. Atoms are like the smallest thing besides protons, neutrons, electrons.
I knew they were smaller, I just didn't know how big they were.
But considerable. You can see cells underneath microscopes. You can't see atoms without like really special, crazy. And then you're not even really seeing the atom, you're just seeing the electron cloud around the atom.
Well, that's pretty huge.
So yeah, atoms are really tiny. Okay, anyway, so cells, smallest anatomical, I'll say organ, you guys already have that written down. You know what I mean by that. Cells make tissues, tissues make organs, organs make organ systems, and so on and so forth. Okay, but we don't break it down any farther than that. And then the final thing, okay? Do cells just get made, like do they just poof out of thin air?
Oh, for sure.
No, they in fact do not. Except for maybe the first ones. Those ones are kind of suspicious. But pretty much all cells, okay? All cells come from pre-existing cells. That have copied their genetic material and divided. Okay, and so with all cells except sex cells, okay, so like sperm and egg, they go through mitosis. Sperm and egg cells go through meiosis. We'll talk about those here 2 weeks from now, probably.
So,
Wait, Schultz, this, like, so basically a cell just like splits in half and makes 2 more cells,
Yep.
and then those 2 cells split and it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Does like, is there like a video of like a cell splitting in half?
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen that?
Let's pull one up right now for you. This is
so Schultz,
I gotta see
are
this.
only humans, do only humans have red blood cells and white blood cells? Or do trees and stuff do too?
trees don't have red blood cells because
Well,
trees
I
don't
mean,
have
I
blood.
mean, like, I mean, like animals and all that, they have.
Anything that has blood has red blood cells. And white blood cells. White blood cells are used to fight off infection.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's some like sensory stuff right there.
sorry, I was a little concerned when you asked me if trees had blood.
Well, no, I was thinking that they didn't have like cells.
Trees have cells.
Well, yeah, I know what I'm saying about.
All plants have cells. All living things have cells.
So then what kind of cells do trees have?
Plant cells.
That's a third grade stuff.
Don't worry. You'll get your animal cells and plant cells. So they're coming up. Oh my God, what is going on here?
Third grade stuff.
I remember that.
I just want to see a cell split in half.
I don't want that. I want real ones.
that's how you explain in Jack's language.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So this is going to be more like bacterial cells, which we call prokaryotic. Okay, they're the smaller ones.
How often do they like split?
Pretty often.
Like every couple of minutes, or
Here, let me look it up.
am I about to overload the cells?
GMO. As we're talking about these cells and we split. Oh. Did they like make it so you can't watch YouTube in school anymore or something? Oh, there it goes.
So, in your body, we have that many cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each day, about 3 trillion cells divide. Whether that's ones that are, so it's kind of a process. Roughly, your cells are gonna divide at least like once every day or
So then
so.
with all the cells dividing and then all the cells dying, it balances out to about 75.5 trillion.
Sure, yeah. So then they're just gonna, you'll see some of them, they break apart and they split.
That looks like a big pile of snakes.
That's just creepy. I don't like that. That's so wait, is that happening inside of us right now?
Probably.
Whoa!
Yep. That just underwent cytokinesis.
Why'd they like hate each other then?
Because the centromeres pull them apart basically. So here you can see right in the middle, that's where all your chromosomes would be. Those little lines. But anyway.
That's kind of weird.
Yep, this is just cells breaking apart.
Oh, there'll be a lot of cells here in a second.
This is actually just one cell. But these are all the chromosomes lining up in the middle, okay? Making what is called the metaphase plate. And then eventually it will undergo anaphase where they go, you'll see that here in a second, because now it's in metaphase with the metaphase plate, and boom, anaphase. And then it pinches in the middle, that's telophase, splits, cytokinesis.
Just like that.
Just like that. Okay,
Wow. Science.
so are there any questions about cell theory? Does everybody have that written down? Okay, so let's talk about the 2 different types. We'll probably be done with this in the next 15 minutes. Then you guys can start on those, okay? I'll tell you what you guys will need to do with those. We'll leave that up over there. Okay, so our 2 different types of cells are prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Okay? So, let's go ahead and list some similarities. Okay? Can anybody tell me something that both of these cells have? Both these types of cells.
Multiple cells.
You're onto one, bud. Alright, what else? They both have something that has 3 letters that we talked about earlier.
DNA.
Yay, we're learning! Alright, so both have DNA. Now, the big difference between these types of DNA, eukaryotic cells have linear DNA. So linear DNA means it's in a line, okay? Prokaryotic has circular DNA. Okay? So, circular DNA, linear DNA. Both of these have this stuff called cytoplasm. Okay? What else do they both have? They've both got two more things. No.
No, wait, yeah,
That's actually the number one big thing, okay? Number one thing.
No nucleus.
Nope. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. Okay. Prokaryotic cells, no nucleus. Okay. Prokaryotic cells are really, really basic. Okay. They also both have ribosomes. Okay, and we'll learn a lot more about ribosomes. Ribosomes are really, really important. Ribosomes are what take your DNA. Actually, it takes the RNA. It has to get changed into RNA from DNA first. But it takes essentially the genetic information you have, turns it into proteins. Okay? So that's what that stuff does. They also both have plasma membrane. Okay, so the outside cell membrane, both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells both have this cell membrane. All right, plasma membrane. We're going to talk a lot more about the plasma membrane on Wednesday, and we should be doing, or at least starting a lab on Wednesday with that. Okay. So. What else was I going to say? Okay, so organelles. Let's define that word real fast. Okay, so organelles are the tiny organ-like structures in a cell that help it function. Okay? So eukaryotic cells have membrane bound organelles. Okay? So kind of like how in our body, your heart pretty much stays right here, right? It doesn't go floating around. Right? We all understand that. Stomach's down here, lungs. Stay in roughly the same spot. If they start shifting, you've probably got problems. There. So like they're bound, okay? Membrane bound, so like they're bound to something in our body. The organelles in eukaryotic cells are bound to the cell membrane, okay? So they stick to it. They're in a certain spot, okay? These have no membrane bound organelles. Okay? So really all that these have, super simple cells, all they have inside of them is cytoplasm, some ribosomes, and some circular DNA. Okay? Over there we've got things like your Golgi bodies, your smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum, your mitochondria, okay? You've got all of these different things. Much more complex, which is why we got so much stuff over here. That's why these are bigger. Okay? About 10 to 100 micrometers in diameter. That's two different words. Don't write in diameter in one word. Okay, these are small. Okay. Any questions so far? Only got like one or two more things to say about this. And so, prokaryotic cells are primarily what? Does anybody know what they usually are? What was it, Ryan?
Bacteria.
Thank you. Okay, so bacteria. These are generally what are prokaryotic cells. Bacteria. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really a prokaryotic cell. Viruses. Are viruses a living thing? No, viruses are not a living thing. Bacteria is, okay? This is why you treat bacterial diseases versus viral.
So why do they say kill the virus if it's already dead?
Because, well, and see, this is the thing.
That was never one, sorry.
It's never alive. Viruses are like quasi-alive. They're like kind of living things. They're not really. All they are is just this weird little mosquito-looking thing that goes into your cell and injects viral DNA, and it becomes part of your DNA. Okay. And so you can essentially, you don't kill it, but imagine like a robot's not alive, right?
Wait, so mosquito?
Like a robot's not alive, but if you stomped on a robot, like a small robot, you would kill the robot. Okay. We're essentially killing the little receptacle that goes around and injects the viral DNA in your thing.
So COVID just basically goes up to a cell and just injects it into the cell?
All viral flu does that. Any viral disease does that.
But like on the pictures like COVID, it's like a circle thing. It's like things going on. So it's not like a little, it doesn't look like a little mosquito like you said.
Well, that thing, that's what's inside of that's what's being injected essentially, is the little blobby looking weird thing.
Oh, okay.
They're not living things, but they're not. It's kind of, I don't know. Viruses are not living, okay? But they're not just like floating pieces of gunk. It's weird. Viruses are weird. Virology is really weird. Anyway, eukaryotic cells, two main types. Animals and plants. Good job. Okay. Okay. What's the main difference between animal and plant cells? Plant cells have like two more things. They have a couple more things, but really they have two main things. Give me one, Jordan.
Plants have like the extra wall.
It's called the cell wall. Okay, so plants have cell wall.
Also nuclear.
And what else do plants have that we don't?
It's like
That's-
an N?
No. It starts with a C. What'd you say? No? Chloroplast. Okay? Plants have chloroplasts. What happens in chloroplasts? What's that, Ryan? Correct. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass these around. Okay? Front side, back side. Now, looking at this, plant cell versus, alright, looks like for the most part, the only two things that aren't on the animal side are the cell wall and the chloroplasts, from what I can see. Okay? So, what I'm going to have you guys do, and it doesn't have to be super long, these just have to be like 1 to 3 sentences, whatever you think helps you. You need to write down the function for all of these, okay? What they do, all right? And make sure you write it down, not whatever, you know. And you can go out and grab your textbooks here in just a second, all right? Because you can get that information from there, or you can look it up on your computers. You can do either or, all right? Not on your phones. Let's go either computers or textbooks for this one. And you're going to write these down, and then I've got colored pencils back there. I'll put them on like one up front and then one on the lab bench, the boxes. And basically you guys are just going to be color coding these and you'll be putting down their functions. All you're going to have to do is turn these in to me, let's call it by Wednesday, okay, since we have about an hour 20 left in this class. Should be plenty of time to get this done, okay? Turn it in, get it to me by Wednesday. Really all I'm going to do is check and make sure you have it, okay? And then we're going to go through what these do on Wednesday just at the beginning, but I want you guys to look this up because when you look it up, it's been proven that that creates, again, those neural kind of connections. It helps you remember it better if you're the ones who looked it up first. Then we'll just kind of briefly go over it on Wednesday morning, which then we'll start doing a lab, because that lab will take a long time. But anyway, so I'll pass these out. You can color them first, and then you can write the functions, color. These are essentially just going to be study material guides for you guys, okay? So if anybody needs to go out and get their... Sure, if you want to spread out throughout the room, that's fine. If you want to listen to music, you can listen through headphones, okay?
We're making them our own color or the color they're supposed to be?
Just color code it. You need to know. So like, and that's a good point, Jack. And so if you, let's say chromatin, okay? Say you color the chromatin inside of here and you color it purple, just shade over the word chromatin in purple, okay? That way I know what's what when I'm looking at this, and that way you know what's what. Centrioles, if they're orange, okay, color them orange in here, and then just shade over that with orange, or shade above it if it's too dark of a color to really see the words without it. All right, does that make sense? If you don't have enough room to write your functions on here, you can do that on a separate sheet of paper, okay? But yeah, you can spread out throughout the room. If you're gonna, so say someone's sitting over there, just make sure that if you're gonna take your mask off, that you're 6 feet away from them. If you want to sit at your desks, you obviously can keep your masks off while you're inside your little receptacle. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? If you need to go get your book, make sure you mask up before you go out there, or if you need to grab your computer, okay? If you want to spread out, I'll come pass these out. Okay. I gotta double check to make sure.
Well, I think we have a slight problem. The part of the book that's missing is the part I need.
Why don't we just grab you a different book?
No, I think there's newer ones at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. Open that. There's some. Make sure you put your names on these. Did I already give you one of these, McRae?
No.
You're over there. Oh my God.
I know, the masks make it harder.
Yeah, just write down the function, okay? And if you're confused about, like, when you look it up in the book or if you look it up online and it doesn't quite make sense to you, ask me and I'll help put it into better, more understandable words, okay? I gotta make you a copy.
Oh, thank you.